This isn't just a story. It's the kind of wound that keeps you awake at 2 a.m., replaying every word, every smirk, every betrayal. My name is Clara, and I used to think family dinners were supposed to be about connection, about laughter and shared memories. But on that night, my mother's birthday, it became the stage for my downfall and my rebirth. I parked my car in front of the house I grew up in, clutching the gift bag I had carefully prepared for Evelyn, my mother. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet I'd saved up for, a small attempt to give her something beautiful after decades of watching her bend and shrink under my father's shadow. I told myself, tonight is for her, not for me, not for Sophie. The moment I stepped in, the air was rich with roasted chicken, garlic bread, and rosemary potatoes, the smell of childhood. Evelyn greeted me with a soft smile, her hands warm against mine. "Clara," she whispered, as though my presence alone made her night better. For a brief second the knot in my chest loosened. Maybe, just maybe, we'd have peace. The dining room sparkled with candles, polished plates, and crystal glasses. My cousins were already laughing, my aunts whispering gossip like it was currency. I slid into my chair, hoping to disappear into the rhythm of clinking forks and chatter. Evelyn looked radiant at the head of the table, glowing under the rare spotlight of her own birthday. But peace in our family never lasted. It was a guest that overstayed its welcome and always paid in bitterness. Before the chicken was even carved, Richard, my father, cleared his throat and steered the conversation the way he always did, straight toward my sister. "Sophie's thriving at college," he boomed, his fork slicing the air like a conductor's baton. "Straight A's, juggling work, perfect in every way." The words hit me like stones. Sophie lowered her head, pretending to be humble, but her eyes sparkled with satisfaction. She lived for these moments. Everyone else sat quietly, nodding as if Richard's speeches were gospel. Evelyn glanced at me apologetically, but her softness couldn't erase the sting. I forced a smile, chewing slowly, but my stomach twisted. "This is Mom's night, not Sophie's," I told myself. Still, I swallowed the bitterness because I didn't want to ruin it. Not yet. But then Richard's sharp eyes turned toward me, and I knew peace was already dead. "Clara," he said, his voice heavy with authority. "Are you doing enough to help your sister?" The fork froze in my hand. My heartbeat quickened. That was the moment the battlefield was declared. The entire table seemed to lean in, waiting for my response. My pulse pounded in my ears, but I forced my hand to move, setting the fork gently down on the plate. I had been paying Sophie's rent for nearly a year, covering her groceries, her phone bill, sending her money when she overspent on clothes or weekend trips. But Richard wasn't looking for facts. He was setting a trap. Before I could answer, he swiveled to Sophie, his tone coaxing, almost theatrical. "Well, Sophie? Does your sister help you enough?" Sophie tilted her head, the picture of innocence, her voice dipped in honey. "She does," she said sweetly. But then she paused, long enough for everyone's eyes to lock on her. And that smirk, the one she tried to hide, curved at the corner of her lips. "There's something I've been meaning to ask." My stomach clenched. I already knew. Richard leaned forward like a king awaiting tribute. "Go on, Sophie." Her gaze landed on me, sharp and deliberate. "I need a car, Clara. Just something reliable to get me between classes and work." It would mean the world. The room froze. Forks hovered mid-air. My cousins shifted in their seats, pretending to focus on their plates. Evelyn's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her wine. "A car?" I repeated slowly, my voice calm but laced with disbelief. Sophie nodded eagerly as though she hadn't just detonated a bomb. "Nothing fancy. Just something dependable. You know, for my future." I turned my eyes to Richard. "If she needs a car, why don't you buy it?" The shift in the air was immediate. Richard's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing like a storm cloud. "You mean to tell me you can't do that for your sister?" His tone was scathing, accusing, as if I'd committed some moral crime. I took a breath, steadying my voice. "I'm already paying her rent, Dad. If she wants a car, that's her responsibility." That was when the mask slipped. Richard's face turned crimson, veins pulsing at his temples. His voice thundered across the table. "Sophie has potential. She's going places, but she needs support. And you can't even do this one thing? She's better than you, Clara. Always has been. Always will be." The words cut through me like a blade. The room collapsed into silence. Sophie feigned embarrassment, eyes cast down, but I caught the flicker of triumph in her smirk. Evelyn's face paled, her lips parted in protest, but no words came out. Something inside me broke. No, something inside me finally snapped free. A laugh slipped out, cold and sharp. Surprising even me. I looked Richard straight in the eye. "Perfect," I said, my voice like ice. "Then she can start by paying her own rent." The silence that followed was heavier than stone. Richard shoved his chair back, the screech slicing through the air. He pointed at me like I was an enemy intruder. "Get out!" he roared. It was supposed to be Evelyn's birthday dinner. Instead, it became the night I stopped being their scapegoat. I didn't rush to leave. Instead, I rose slowly, every muscle taut but steady, and whispered, "Happy birthday, Mom," before turning and walking upstairs. My old bedroom door clicked shut behind me, muffling the chaos that erupted downstairs. I leaned against it, chest heaving, the echo of Richard's roar still rattling in my bones. I sat on the edge of my childhood bed staring at the faded posters on the wall, relics of a girl who once believed her family would protect her. My phone buzzed in my hand. Sophie's name lit the screen. I almost laughed. "Already?" "Mia," she began, her voice sharp, frantic, but I cut her off. "Clara," I corrected flatly, "and no, not this time." Then I ended the call. The anger in me wasn't a flame. Flames burn out. This was ice. Controlled. Deliberate. I opened my banking app. The one linked to the so-called family safety net Richard had insisted I open years ago. He'd told me it was a backup fund for emergencies, a way to show unity. But as the numbers blinked back at me, my stomach twisted. Thousands were gone. I scrolled through the ledger, each entry like a knife. Withdrawals marked cash, transfers labeled tuition, payments I'd never authorized. This wasn't just Sophie's lifeline. It was Richard's playground. He'd been bleeding me dry, siphoning away the life I worked for, then daring to call me selfish. My hands shook, but my mind was clear. I transferred the remaining balance into my personal account. With one final tap, I closed the account. Years of manipulation evaporated in seconds. For the first time, I felt the chains loosen. The calls came in waves after that. First Sophie, her voice shrill. "You drained the account. How am I supposed to pay rent?" "Dad says you're better than me," I said coolly. "Prove it. Figure it out." I hung up before she could reply. Then Richard. His voice was venom, seething through the line. "You closed the account. That money was for the family." "No," I replied, steady as glass. "It was my money, and you've taken enough." "You're leaving your sister homeless," he barked. "She's better than me, remember? She'll survive." Silence. Then the click of disconnection. Downstairs I heard laughter forced back to life, forks clinking, the family burying wreckage under small talk, like they always did. But I sat upstairs, breathing evenly for the first time in years. I wasn't just rebelling, I was reclaiming. And deep down, I knew Richard wouldn't let this go quietly. 2 mornings later, the war escalated. I pulled into my parents' driveway to pick up a few things I'd left behind, and froze. Sitting there was my old sedan, the one I had bought at 17 with tips from waiting tables, my first real taste of independence. But now, taped across the windshield in garish neon, was a for sale sign. My breath caught in my throat, rage burning hot. That car wasn't just metal and tires. It was mine. A piece of my history. Richard had no right. I stormed inside, nearly slamming the door off its hinges. Evelyn was in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a dish towel. She nearly dropped it when she saw me. "Where's Dad?" I demanded, my voice shaking. Her eyes flickered, guilt spilling across her face. "He thought, since you don't drive it anymore?" "It's mine," I snapped, cutting her off. "Not his to sell." I didn't wait for her excuses. I marched back out, ripped the sign off, and slid into the driver's seat. The engine coughed before roaring alive, rattling with age. But to me, it sounded like victory. Gravel spit from the tires as I pulled away, taking back what was rightfully mine. Minutes later, my phone rang. Richard's name blazed across the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "You changed your mind?" His voice was smug, oily. "No," I said coldly. "You don't get to sell what's mine." He chuckled darkly. "You left it here. That makes it mine to deal with. You're done in this family, Clara." "Fine," I spat. "Then let's see how you handle Sophie without me." And I hung up. But my fury only sharpened. That night I combed through years of bank statements. Every late-night transfer, every withdrawal Richard had dressed up as Sophie's needs. And then I saw it. The truth buried in numbers. Tuition and groceries weren't the only charges. There were casino payments. Cash withdrawals timed perfectly with local card games. He wasn't just funding Sophie's life. He was feeding his own gambling habit with my money. The betrayal made my skin crawl. Days later, the next strike came. I opened the door to my apartment and froze. The place was gutted. My TV, gone. Laptop, missing. Even my jewelry box and watch collection had vanished. No forced entry, no broken lock. Just emptiness. And only 2 people had spare keys, Richard and Evelyn. My phone trembled in my hand as I dialed. Richard answered on the second ring. "Where's my stuff?" I demanded, voice like steel. His response was almost amused. "What are you talking about?" "You robbed me for Sophie," I hissed. He didn't deny it. His voice turned flat. "Family comes first." A pause, then his words slashed through the line. "You'd understand if you weren't so damn selfish." My blood ran cold. He had declared war. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I picked up my bag the next morning and walked straight into a law office downtown. The attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Ms. Carter, listened carefully as I laid everything out: bank statements, receipts, screenshots of transfers, and now the theft of my belongings. She tapped her pen against her notepad, lips pressed thin. "This is financial abuse," she said finally, "and theft. You have more than enough evidence to press charges." Her words cracked something open in me. For years, I'd been gaslit into thinking I was overreacting, selfish, ungrateful. But now, with a single sentence, the truth was laid bare. I was the victim. And I had power. That night, I called Richard. My thumb hovered over the record button as the phone rang. He picked up on the third try, voice low and dangerous. "You think you're smart, Clara, running to lawyers?" he sneered. I steadied my voice. "Return my things or I press charges. I have your theft on record, your withdrawals, even your voice admitting it. Don't test me." For the first time, silence stretched on his end. His confidence cracked. When he finally spoke, his voice was brittle. "You'd jail your own father?" "Try me," I said coldly. 3 days later, my bank lit up with notifications. Every cent returned. No apologies, no explanations, just numbers blinking back at me like a white flag. But the victory was bittersweet. I knew this wasn't a family anymore. It was a battlefield I had finally escaped. Within weeks, I sold my apartment, packed what little I had left, and moved 3 states away. The new place was small, but quiet. No guilt trips, no theft. No being invisible in Sophie's shadow. For the first time, I was free. Months passed, each day like a breath of clean air. Then one evening, my phone lit up with Evelyn's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice was tight, trembling. "Clara, it's Sophie. She's pregnant. The father left. She has nothing. We need you." A bitter laugh escaped me. "She's better than me, remember? She'll figure it out." I hung up before she could respond. Weeks later, Sophie's email arrived. The subject line, "I'm sorry." Her words spilled out. Single motherhood was harder than she imagined. Dad was broke. She needed help. I hovered over the reply button for a moment, and then clicked spam. They had drained me, mocked me, stolen from me. Now, they could learn what survival really meant. I leaned back in my chair, the quiet hum of my new apartment wrapping around me like armor. I wasn't Clara the wallet anymore. I wasn't the scapegoat. I was Clara. Free, untethered, whole.